All right, welcome, Harmless Dave, over on the Real Media Observer, observing real media in real time for some real diehard people out there, just like you and just like me. Welcome to my nightmare. So Mitch McConnell, I like to call him, chicken turtle came out of his hibernation to blast Joseph R. Biden, who is the duly elected president, and there was no tampering whatsoever in the last election. It was the cleanest, best election we've ever had as a country. God bless America, right? So, in any event, McConnell is upset because Joe Biden, he said the quiet part out loud right before Memorial Day weekend. Yep. During a diplomatic trip in Japan earlier in the week, Biden suggested that bloated energy costs would help promote the transition to clean energy and away from fossil fuels. Yeah, it's a transition. Did you hear about this? This is what Biden said, in case you missed this, because this, right, would cause you to grab a roll of duct tape and to, just duct tape your brain so it doesn't explode. When it comes to gas prices, we are going through an incredible transition that is taking place that God willing, when it's over, we'll be stronger and the world will be stronger and less reliant on fossil fuels. Okay, so if you don't have something to fully replace, this is where the duct tape is needed here. So, okay, hey, Joe, I'd like to run my car on something other than, fossil fuels. Can you give me a suggestion? And what do I have to do? Do I have to buy an electric car? Which, by the way, if you plug it in, the power going into that electric car, most likely it's something like 70 or 80% of that power being created so you can charge your electric car, that's coming from fossil fuels. So they're basically saying here that we don't want you driving a car anymore. And we're in a transition. And we didn't tell you. You know how Janet Yellen, she said a couple of years ago we had this inflation problem and we were in a transition, or last year. She said, hey, we're in a transition. And then she came out a couple of days ago and she said, I was wrong. Inflation's here to stay. So we've got inflation and we're going to transition from fossil fuels over to clean energy, and nobody told anybody. It's just, we're driving the prices up. This is why you decide to take a pipeline offline. You decide you're not going to issue any more leases, right, to drill on federal land. And this other issue about drilling where they were going to drill in certain areas and now they're not going to drill. It's pretty astonishing. And by the way, for those people who say, this is just big oil, right? And I agree with you that these big oil people don't care about you and I. They're using this crisis as well. I agree. It's not like the people over at Chevron or Exxon or wherever are going to be all like, hey, maybe we should try to lower prices, right? As soon as you do price controls, by the way, which certain Democrats are suggesting we ought to do price controls, you're going to have the 1970s gas lines where they only have so much gas. And if you have a license plate that ends in, an even number or something, you might be able to go out and get gas that day. But if you don't, then you're going to have to wait until the next day. This is the kind of stuff that happened during Jimmy Carter. Now, there is a pattern here. There were high gas prices under Carter. They weren't too bad under Clinton. I will say that. So we skipped one Democrat. We didn't see skyrocketing gas prices. From what I remember, I think they were fairly stable, right? We did see a big spike in gas prices right after 9/11, thanks to George W. Bush. Yeah, he was great, wasn't he? I mean, he is now regarded as a statesman. When he goes out there and gives a speech, and says, what did he say? Iraq instead of Ukraine, the war in Iraq, because, it's still on his mind because it was such an amazing achievement, and he's a statesman now. And the mainstream media loves George W. Bush, a guy who they couldn't wait to get rid of so they could bring the Messiah into office. And of course, that was Obama. Now, Obama didn't do a lot of good for gas prices, but eventually some of that power was wrestled away from him because Republicans scored a huge majority and were basically, forcing him to triangulate a little bit or basically curtail the damage he was doing. We've got until November. And folks, I've said it in other videos. I'm not sure there are going to be midterm elections. I'm not sure. I don't know. Based on what we've gone through the last 2 or 3 years, all I can tell you is that it's 50-50. Some states might be able to do it, but it'll be null and void because not all states are able to do it, because some of those states are going to concoct some kind of an emergency, another medical crisis. Could be the pox coming, could be the money pox. That's what me and Jim Roguski, a name I can pronounce correctly, by the way, whereas other people have issues with it. It's the money pox. So people need to make money, pharmaceutical companies and so forth. It's going to be great. I mean, everyone's going to love the money pox. So let me get back to this transition thing. So you got Mitch McConnell, who really is fairly lockstep with Joe Biden. So this is unusual that finally something would wake up the chicken turtle and he would say something talking about how, this is a heck of a way to describe his administration's war on the most affordable, reliable, and abundant forms of energy in our country. Okay. Look, this is mostly politics for Mitch McConnell. Here's what I'm into. I'm into contacting your state, like your governor, your senators, your Congress people, your state reps, especially. I would go state rep and say, hey, I live in the state of Florida. I live in the state of Texas. Can we just get our own energy? Can we just drill for our own energy, whether it's natural gas, oil, whatever it is underneath the ground? And some people are just like, oh no, carbon, here we go. Talk to China before anybody. Talk to India. If you're going to take that route and say we need to be responsible, we are offset. You know how they do carbon offsets, right? Well, every time that we do something solar or wind or hydro, what happens? Well, they build another coal plant over in China. That's what's happening right now. They build 2 of them in India. Those countries are emerging countries and they have large populations, and they know that you can't just cut the energy supply and expect that your grid is going to work. But that's what we're expecting here. And what is this going to force people to do? Well, remember when we were all sheltering in place? Well, guess what we're going to do again? We're going to shelter in place. We're going to do staycations. Well, I was going to go, to the Grand Canyon, but screw that. I mean, it'll cost me like $400 in gas just to get there from where I am, and then another $400 to get back. And that doesn't include the hotel accommodations or anything that we want to do. So tourism will go down the drain because people, they don't need tourism. They want tourism. They want to do something, especially since they've been told for 2+ years that, oh no, don't go out. Don't see other people. That's bad. It's a super spreader event. What are you doing? So I just find this fascinating that we had all of this lockdown time, and now we're looking at people making their own decisions to self-lockdown. I mean, it's not like they can't go outside and walk around or maybe travel locally, but it's almost as if they want you sheltering in place forever, which is going to be great for your physical health. It's going to be great for your immune system to constantly be in one place all the time and being in fear, right? Which we had, and we still have that fear. Again, we have the money pox out there, which could be more fear, and it could be weaponized. We don't know. Some people say it's not a big deal. Other people are like, not if it is the same kind of concocted thing that the last one was, right? So it's very interesting that Biden is saying, God willing, we'll be on the other side and we'll be stronger. Really? So people are probably going to lose their jobs because of this, right? I would think so. They can't get back and forth to work, or, or maybe, again, this is going to be like you can work from home, but the traditional way of commuting and so forth, this is going to be very expensive, and real wages are not going up fast enough to make up for this inflation that Janet Yellen has apologized for, because, she said she was wrong. She said it was transitory. Well, Biden is saying that transitioning, this is truly transitory. We're going to be transitioning, and we're doing it right now. And the government is now telling you that we are transitioning from fossil fuel over to renewables. They're not offering you any kind of subsidy, by the way. They're not saying, hey, we see you've got 2 gas-powered vehicles, right? This is what we're going to do. The government will give you $30,000 for both of them. And then you can put that toward a hybrid or electric vehicle, which means, you'll be trading 2 vehicles for one. And by the way, you still probably won't be able to buy a really good electric vehicle or hybrid outright for that amount of money. Maybe you will. The problem I see, though, is, again, these vehicles all have backup systems, and the backup systems are fossil fuel. Will this help curtail the use of fossil fuel? Yes. But will the price go down? Probably not, because they're going to find another way to restrain the production of these fossil fuels. There's really no end to this in sight. It's absolutely maddening. It's mortifying, because you're just sitting there going, I'm just trying to make ends meet. I'm trying to do what Americans do. We travel, we work, we play, we do all of these different things. And now the government is saying, you know what? We're in a little transition period, and you're just going to have to get used to it. And to come out and say, God willing, people are going to suffer, and it's going to be a great transition. I think he used the word incredible. Biden says it's an incredible transition. Folks, here's the truth, right? Here is the truth. We have enough of our own domestic energy supply. And I know that because in the fall of 2020, gas prices were at $1.89 a gallon. Whether you liked Donald Trump or not, he had an energy dominance philosophy, which made it affordable for many families to function as families, to do the things that families do. I mean, our standard of living is collapsing. It's just going through the floor. Nobody's really talking about standard of living. You like to see, the next generation do better than the last generation. We're not doing that anymore. I mean, there is a global agenda, and, success and, working hard and doing all those things that used to be hallmarks of an upwardly mobile society. Those things are completely out the window now. And they would persuade you with their incredible rhetoric here, the president saying that, hey, we're in an incredible transition. And it's just great news that people are suffering out there. And, he even said, you're going to have to experience, he said, economic pain. I didn't see a lot of economic pain toward the end of the last administration. And yeah, Obama can say when he left, the country was starting to recover a little bit after 8 years of carnage, right? 9 years, 10 years, if you look at the end of Bush. That was a long period of time. That was called the Great Recession. I think now we're in the Great Recession. That's where we are now. We're in the great, and this is a self-inflicted wound. The government is intentionally doing this to you. They're saying we're in a transition, and we don't have to be in that transition. It's kind of like when you pull all the troops out of Afghanistan. You could have done an orderly transition rather than quitting cold turkey, right? And are we trying to quit fossil fuels cold turkey? People are going to freeze to death in the wintertime if that's the case. The power grid is not going to work. There are going to be blackouts and brownouts, and people are going to go, wonder why that's happening. Why? I'll tell you why. Because we're in a transition. It's very simple. Biden says it's a transition. And from now on, if you see any problems out there, you can go back to this wonderful speech, this statement he made, and nobody, by the way, walked that speech back. They'll walk back all of the crazy stuff he says about Vladimir Putin and Ukraine. They'll walk it back to some degree. But on this one, nah, he got this one right. He read right from the script they want him to read from. I mean, this to me is a maniacal plan to hurt people when we don't have the technology lined up to replace what we're giving up, what we're transitioning. Imagine doing a transition and there's nothing to transition to. So the bottom line is you have to stop doing what you've been doing. It's kind of like, okay, I want to land here, but there's no place to land. And, it's like you're parachuting down, and it's either, you find a place to land softly, which we have nothing, or you crash into the rocks, and that's the end of you. And I've never, ever seen a country this hell-bent on destroying itself. We're literally destroying ourselves. We're not saying, okay, we have a problem, let's fix it. Like the baby food thing, this is classic government. They say, okay, well, we're going to get baby food from Germany. What? Why? We don't make anything. We can't even make baby food. We had one major manufacturing plant, the FDA shut down. Funny, by the way, how the FDA shut down a baby food factory. But they're not finding any issues with another thing that I like to call it. They're not finding any issues there. Nope, nothing to see over here. This VAERS data, nope, didn't see it. Sorry, it's not accurate anyway. Oh, okay. But you go ahead and shut down the baby food factory, right? And then it doesn't open up again until there's a crisis. And then the FDA says, well, maybe you can open up again. Because we're the government, and we give you permission now to make baby food. We're going to import baby food from Germany. And it's going to take weeks before that baby food gets out there, gets to the stores. They're going to send them to Target and Walmart or whatever. And how quickly is that going to be? I mean, I tell you what, if I were a family and I had babies, I'd be like, okay, I'm the husband. I'll go in first. Then I'll send the wife in. Then I'll send, teenage kids in there. And we would be, you want to call it hoarding? Do you want to keep your kids alive? If that's all they can eat? And some of these babies only can eat certain kinds of baby food, like gluten-free or whatever it is. I wonder why that is. Again, kind of relates back to the little emperor doctor and the protocols and, the childhood schedule and so forth. But we won't, hey, I don't want to go down that road. I'm trying to keep this channel from being deleted. Here is the super bottom line. You cannot transition to something, right, that doesn't exist. Let's all transition to solar cars. That doesn't exist. Let's all convert our combustion engines over to electric. No, it can't be done. It's impossible to do that. Bring your car to the government and trade it in for a brand new electric vehicle. Are they doing that? No, they're not doing that. Are they creating thousands of charging stations in convenient places? Have they figured out how to charge a car in 5 minutes? Just throwing these things out there. These are all problems that we have that nobody wants to address, because this is like pulling the rug out from somebody who's going to go face first into the concrete. And that's what this is about. This is not about an orderly transition. This is about a mean, nasty, and painful transition. And you could say all you want, yeah, we should have been working on this. We have solutions to these problems. The guy in New Hampshire who runs his truck on ammonia, burns clean, by the way, works almost as good as gasoline. The conversion is not that hard. How much does ammonia cost? And how many different things can you make ammonia with? I think urine contains ammonia. Seriously, I mean, talk about solving the energy prices. Honey, I'm going to fill up the car. I'm going to go out into the garage. You know, I'm just kidding, by the way. I'm just being a little bit weird. Here's the deal, though. We are not the country we once were when it comes to having this can-do spirit. We can fix this. No, people are just all laying back, waiting for the government to save you. And they're not going to save you. I mean, I am so black-pilled right now. Yeah, McConnell makes a statement. Whoop-de-doo. He's, again, a chicken turtle, okay? And he says 80% of what Obama says and what Biden says and any other person in the uniparty, every so often he goes off on a so-called Republican tangent, which is meaningless because it's just for politics. It's just political. I mean, what is McConnell going to do to stop the transition? What's he doing? Is he proposing anything? You know, he's not. He's not. And it's all just words to make a few people feel as though, yes, McConnell gets it. He's good. And I'm going to vote for him again. And he's going to destroy more American jobs and offshore more jobs and do what he's been doing for like 40 years. How long has he been there? How long have all these people been there? And your leader is the guy that's been in there since the early 70s. And his political career achieved nothing. And his presidency is like a puppet show, right? He's just a puppet, you know, on the strings. So, yeah, when they say transition and there's nowhere to transition to, that's a big problem, people. It's a little problem, right? It's not a big deal. It just means that you're not going to be able to go anywhere. It means once they put some price controls into effect, again, odd plates on even days, even plates on odd days, however they're going to do that. I know there's no such thing as an even day or an odd day. I guess it depends. Like Monday is your even day, Tuesday is your odd day, or you just go by the plate, you know, hey, it's an odd number. I get to go today. Tuesday is an odd day. That could be our future. Or they could just run out of fuel completely and there will be no gas line. And the other option, of course, is, you know, gas hits $7 a gallon. You could only afford like 5 gallons, 4 or 5 gallons, which means you're not driving as much. And in the case of so many people that have to commute back and forth to work, I don't know how they manage this. I do not know how they manage. Do they not buy food? Do they not pay other bills that they have? Do they default on their mortgage? Which, by the way, that's coming, people. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are out there again doing the same crap they did 12 years ago. Hey, yeah, no credit? Sure. Hey, you first-time home buyer without a job? Not a big deal. We'd be more than happy to give you a loan. Oh, it's the perfect storm, and it's not going to be funny. I think the fourth quarter of this year is going to be something to see. And by the way, if the Republicans all get elected, if they actually do have the elections, which is a little iffy, they're going to get blamed. They'll get blamed immediately. Well, it's the Republicans that caused this. They were all just, and they're not even sworn in yet. So maybe they can't blame them, but they'll still blame them. They'll still blame whoever gets elected who promised to fix things. They're gonna blame those people. They do the opposite. They say the opposite. They do 180 degreeism all the time. And, you know, you get used to it, you see it, and then you shake your head and you go, but this is the opposite of what just happened. How can this be true? What are they doing to us? Every single day in the news. It's actually kind of fun. It's fun to watch and to document, but it's tragic for our country because we're going down the tubes at warp speed as we transition. We're transitioning. Great. You know, I've heard about transitioning, and I don't think it's a good idea in any regard. Just putting it out there. All right. I'm all done. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Patreon for $1 a month, and I will see you all soon.